G'day everyone. In this video, I'm going to be teaching you how to set up a fishing rod from start to finish. Hey you! You're watching Robbie Fishing. Now I'm going to be keeping this nice and simple. I'm going to be walking you through how to set up a fishing rod from a bare rod to putting the reel on, putting the line on, setting it all up and rigging it up with a hook and sinker, ready to go. But first, I just want to talk about stumpy rods. Are stumpy fishing rods any good? This is one of my favourite fishing rods. I call it stumpy. That's it there. It's 3 foot long. Stumpy. It's a Silstar Powertip, and I get a lot of questions about this rod. It's a Silstar Powertip. The model is PF351 SPL. It's 1.04 metres, so it's 3 foot 5. It's 3 to 5 kilograms rated, which is 5 to 12 grams. And 5 to 12 grams. So it's quite a heavy little rod for such a short little stumpy rod. Now I call this stumpy because it's short and stumpy. But are stumpy rods any good? Well, a bit of a backstory before I teach you how to set it up. I bought this a few years ago for fun. No other reason than for fun, and I used it for fun. It's a lot of fun. It's a metre long, and I've caught carp 70 centimetres long on this rod. I've caught carp that are only a foot shorter than the rod. I've caught carp that big on a rod that big. And it's lots and lots and lots of fun, but I've never really known too many reasons to buy a stumpy rod until now. All I could say to people was, if you want to buy one, they're fun. And they fit on the back seat easy, and that's about it. To cast them out, they're a nightmare. They don't cast far. They don't cast long like a long rod. They cast crooked. You cast them out and they sort of veer off to the left or the right. They don't cast accurately and they don't cast far. But in the last few weeks, I have found a really good reason to buy a stumpy rod. In fact, it's such a good reason that I went out and bought another one, a new one. And I'm going to be rigging this up now as I walk you through how to rig up a rod and reel. This is the rod I'm going to be using. Now, somebody asked me recently, how much does it cost? How much did your stumpy rod cost? And I couldn't remember. And I said, I think it was about $100. Boy, was I wrong. You don't believe how expensive these short stumpy rods are. Check this out. Is that focusing on there? $29.99. $30 at Anaconda in Albury. In fact, the reel that I've got on it, the rod and the, what did I buy? Rod, reel and line cost me about $100, $110 or something all up. It was really, really cheap. It's a cheap rod, so it's good and it's cheap. And the reason that I wanted to get another short rod, you may have seen some of my recent videos where I've been fishing after dark, and I've had my two rods, my long rod with the running sinker rig and my short stumpy rod, that one there with the paternoster rig, and I've been putting a torch underneath, shining up, and it lights up the end of the stumpy rod really well, but I can't see the end of the long rod because it's another metre away and it's out over the water, so I can't put a light under it to light it up. I need to move both my rods back, move the light back, and then I'm sitting too far from the water. So I thought, I need two stumpy rods because when I'm sitting on a sandbar fishing at night time, the stumpy rod isn't hanging out over the water like the long rod. So I want a second rod so that I can have the two rod tips right next to each other and the light pointing up. I can get the light and tilt it up a little bit, like bury it into the sand or the dirt. That does work, but it also casts light onto the water, which kind of defeats the purpose of fishing at night time in the first place, because a lot of fish are light sensitive and they don't want to come out into the open at night time on a sandbar. They'd rather stay down deep under the logs. So I wanted two short stumpy rods for my nighttime fishing adventures so that the rod tips are right next to each other and I can see when I'm getting a bite and they go on the back seat really easily. Right, so we've worked out why they're good, what their pros and cons are. We've worked out that it's a $30 rod. Let's set it up. I'll break that tag off. The reel that I've got it set up with is a Shimano Sienna 2500 HG. This is not a top of the range reel. That's not an expensive reel. I think it cost me about $60 or $70. I've got some really expensive rods and reels. I've got some really good quality rods and reels, but I won't buy them for this type of fishing. If you're buying fishing rods for a kid or for somebody that just wants to sit on the bank and drown bait, expensive reels and rods are not needed. They're not required. expensive rods are required when you're casting lures day after day, or when you're just casting lures in general, because they cast a lot more accurately than what these sort of soft rods will, and you've got them in your hand, not laying in the sand. I can tell you right now, this reel is going to be laying in the sand at some stage. That reel spent half its life in the sand. So on a rod, you'll see there's usually I'll call these the seating, or the seats, or the clamps. There's usually a fixed one and one that you can adjust. So I'm going to adjust that so that it's open. It's on a little screw there. You can screw that up and down. I'm going to adjust that. Then this long bit here on the reel goes into one, and then the one that screws, in this case it's the bottom one, I screw that up into the top one. That's in position. Now I just tighten it. With some rods, it's the top one that screws and the bottom one that's firm. Some rods, they both screw, but it's not very often. So this one here, the top one's fixed, the bottom one's loose. I'm going to tighten it up. My reel is on my rod, but the handle's all dicky. Now, what I'm going to do, I can tighten that up by tightening the screw on this side. Now, I'm keeping this as simple as I can. I'm thinking about, you know, single mums with kids that want to take their kids fishing, or people starting fishing for the first time that don't know much about it. I'm hoping to make this as simple as I can for you guys. That's now on there and it's ready to go. But I want to change that to the left-hand side. Not because I'm left-handed, but because I'm right-handed. You see, with fishing, you should reel with your non-dominant hand. If you're right-handed, you want to reel on the left. And if you're left-handed, you want to reel on the right. I know a lot of people are right-handed and they say they prefer to reel on the right, and that's fine. It doesn't matter. But for me, I like the cast with your dominant hand, reel with your left, because I can do this with either hand, but I can't cast accurately with my left hand. So I'm going to, I've completely unscrewed that. I'm going to put it into the left. And on this side, there's a little square. You line that up and put that in. There's two different types of reels. Some have one like this where you've got to take a screw out of one side and screw it in, and others, the actual handle is the screw. That's all pretty self-explanatory, folks. This isn't hard. This isn't rocket science. Right, so I've now got my rod. I've got the reel the way I want it on the left-hand side. Now it's time to put the line on, and what I'm going to be doing is putting Maxima Ultra Green 8 pound. This is my favourite line. I usually use 6 pound, but I just want to go that little bit heavier this time and just see how I go. I just recently, from the same spool, the one that I've been using for a few years, I've put 8 pound on that. This is a Shimano Neck Save. It's still quite a cheap reel. It's a little bit dearer than the Sienna, but they're pretty similar. And I've just put 8 pound on that the other day. So I'm going to hopefully still have enough on the spool to spool up this reel as well. Now what I like to do, there'll be a rubber band on there, take that off. And that rubber band is to stop this from coming undone. I'm going to pull some line off. Now I'm just going to lower it or drop this on the ground. Just like that. That's now on the ground. Oh, I'm going to, before anything, under here, on the reel, you'll see a bit of protective tape. I'm taking that off. That doesn't need to be there. Now I'm going to thread this line down from the top down. One thing I do need to mention, if you are putting braided line on a reel, which I assume most of you landing on this video won't be, if you're using braided line, you probably already know what you're doing, but if you have gone out and bought braided line, it's important to put monofilament line. Some people call it nylon line, monofilament line, it doesn't matter, same thing. We call it plastic line, how's that? Because that'll grip the spool at the bottom. This is the spool, this part, and this will grip the spool better than what braided line will. You can tie braided line as tight as you want, then when you go to turn the reel will turn, but the line won't grip it, so it won't turn, and it's completely ineffective. Right, so I've threaded that down as if I'm going to be fishing with it, and it's ready to go. This part here is called the bail. If you're not sure that's open, that's closed. That's open, that's closed. But if you're not sure, turn the handle. If it turns like that, that means it's closed. Open it, turn the handle, it should click over. It automatically clicks over to closed. So I want to open that and then tie the line on. If I tie it on while it's closed, it's not going to work. I'm going to turn the reel because the line's not going to be under the spool. So I've got to open that and then tie the line to the spool. I'll step back a little bit while I do that. It doesn't need to be any kind of fancy knot. Just do a little granny knot. In fact, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do a granny knot. There's one granny knot, two granny knots, three granny knots. Just do 4 or 5 granny knots. That's sufficient. That will work. With monofilament line, that will work. So I've got that on there with about 4 or 5 granny knots. I'm going to get one of my knives now, one of my O-Light knives, my O knives. I'm just going to cut that tag off. The tag is the extra, the tag is the excess line, the bit that's the tail, the tag, it's the bit that hangs off the end of the knot. I've cut that off. That's now tied on there. Now I close the bail and I'm ready to go. You can get all kinds of devices to help you with this. You can get little clamps. You can get someone to stand there and hold it. But what I prefer to do, I now have my line tied here at one end, and it's tied to that. It's tied to this spool at one end, and it's tied to the spool of line at that end. And I need to get it off that spool onto this spool. Basically, all I've got to do is turn the handle, but I don't want to turn it loose. Because if the line's too loose on the reel, I'll have tangle problems when I'm fishing. That'll fall off the spool. If it's too tight, it will dig into itself, and then I'll have casting problems. So what I do is I get my thumb and my index finger, and I put it there. I'll go back so you can see what I'm doing. I sit that on my thigh like that, and then I reel it in. Now, look at this. Listen to this. That's the drag. That's designed so that when you hook a fish, it can pull line off. That's too loose. I'll never be able to reel a fish in with that much drag. So at the top of the reel, that's your drag setting there. You want to tighten that drag and make it nice and tight. We'll set that later. That's tight now. Right, now let's go. Put that on there. I've got my thumb and my finger clamping down the line. Not too tight, just to make sure that the line goes on firm. And then I reel it in. And you can already see that there's line going on this reel. And I reckon that's about enough. You'll see there, it's not quite full. You don't want to overfill it. You want the line to be a millimetre or so down from the top of the spool. If you were to put something across that spool there, you want there to be about a millimetre gap between your line and, in my case, my finger. Just because if it's over spooled, we call it over spooled when you put too much line on, the moment you cast, all the line will fall off the front of the spool and you'll get a tangle. So you want to make sure that you don't over spool it. As tempted as I am to put that last little bit of line on, it's probably best if I don't, or I will overspool the line and I can have tangling problems. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut this line. I'll get my trusty knife. I'll cut my line. Now I'm going to put a really basic rig, a hook and sinker on here to teach you, just to get you started. Right, I've got my hook and sinker. It's a little bean sinker and it's a small hook. Now, I was going to tie what's called a paternoster rig on here, and I probably will once the camera's off because that's my favourite kind of rig. But because I'm really aiming this video at first timers or just anybody that doesn't know what they're doing, I've decided to go really basic. Pass the line through the hole in the sinker. There'll be a hole in the sinker, and I'm just going to push this straight through so that that sinker is sliding. Now, a little trick, quite often you'll grab sinkers and you won't be able to get the line through. Just looking here to see if I've got one. That one there, the top of it's closed over. What you can do is you can get a hook, any hook, just dig the point of the hook into the hole and just open it up a little bit. That happens in the production process when they make the sinkers. If the lead's still a bit hot, a little bit of lead can go over the hole and just close the hole in. Doesn't mean the sinker's no good. Just get the top of your hook, poke it in and open up that hole. So now, the sinker is on the line. I'm just going to let that dangle between here and the fishing rod, and I'm going to tie a hook to the end, and that's all I'm going to do. So I'll tie this hook on. I'm going to tie the sort of knot that I like to tie, which has got a blood knot. You can tie a granny knot, you can tie any kind of knot you like, but this is the knot that I'm using. As long as the hook is tied to the end, it's okay. I do this to put a little bit of saliva on the line just to prevent friction when I pull the line tight. In a COVID-safe way, of course. And then we'll break that. Actually, yeah. Now, I bit that off. I probably should have used my knife. That's now ready to go. There's my rod, my reel, and my line rigged up, and that will work. Personally, if I'm going to, that's what's called a running sinker rig. Normally, I will get a split shot sinker or even a little stick, and I'll tie it to the line just up from the hook to stop the hook from the sinker from running all the way to the hook. But that's a personal preference. It doesn't have to do that. It can go all the way to the hook like that, and that will work just fine. That's ultra basic, but it works and it's effective. What if I just reel it in along the bottom a little bit? Got him. Oh, look at that. See, it's heavy, big carp, I think. I picked up the line. I picked it up and I thought I'll just bounce it a little bit. I know if it's yellow, this is a carp, I'm pretty sure. If it's a yellow belly, it's probably an Australian record. It's a huge carp. But I thought if it's a yellow belly, sometimes you can sort of bounce the bait along the bottom a little bit and the yellow belly will hit it as it's moving. The movement just attracts the fish. This might be bigger than the last one. Not the last one that I lost, the last one that I caught, which was about 3 lost fish ago, I reckon. This really is a scaled whale. I'm having a ball out here today. I didn't come here just to catch carp, but I'm having fun doing it. I'm still holding on the hope of a nice yellow belly though. Look at the size of the thing. I've got to remember, I've got 8-pound line on now. I normally use 6, but I've gone up a weight grade, so I've got a bit more stick. That's huge. I reckon they catch a bigger cod in the winter. I'm starting to think the same about the carp. Prepare the landing net. Oh no, don't go down there. No, oh good, he's out of there. Got to get my eye on this other line here. Right. Yeah, into the net, into the net. Oh, got him. That is enormous. That is heavy. That weighs a ton, that fish. That's got to be a 10-pound or more fish. That's incredible. Wow. I'll have to see if Sonny has some kind of measuring device when he gets back. But that's huge. Just have a look at the size of that carp. There's got to be a way I can measure it. Probably about, I reckon, 7 or 8 centimetres past there. Or, if I'm moving forward without him doing that, right there, stop there. That's still too big. He's basically from there to the end of the net, plus a little bit. I reckon Sonny's probably got a tape measure with him or a brag mat or something. From the end of there, oh look, it's still, if I lay it flat, it's still about 3 or 4 centimetres longer than that. And it's fat, it's so heavy. Stumpy rods. I love my stumpy rods and I'm so glad that I've got 2. You're going to see videos coming up on my channel where I'm fishing with both of these rods together and hopefully catching fish. If you've landed on this video because you wanted to learn how to set up a fishing rod from scratch, well, hopefully I've taught you something. And if I have, how about subscribing to my channel and giving me a thumbs up? Thank you all very much for watching.